I first moved out of my parents' house in 2008. I was 20, I had a 2-year-old daughter, and gosh darn it, I wanted to assert my independence and prove that I wasn't living with my parents because I couldn't live on my own. Overall, it was a relatively dumb idea. I moved to a cool part of town, next to campus, next to the arts districts, but in a really beautiful neighborhood I always wanted to live in. But it was 15 minutes away from the suburbs my parents lived in, and since I worked nights, I'd spend way too much time driving back and forth so my mom could babysit on the nights I worked. Despite the inconvenience, the neighborhood did not disappoint. I was in a small apartment building right in the middle of beautiful Victorian houses that sell for upwards of $1 million. Lovely neighborhoods, quiet area, no problem with anyone ever. It felt safe. There was even a neighborhood watch and everything. I think there was only one incident of car break-ins in my 2 years there, and even then they just hit the cars that were unlocked. No smashed windows or damaged property. What you are seeing now is a Google Maps image of the building. The arrow is pointing at my old place. I was upstairs, at the end of the building. As evident in the picture, there's no reason for anyone other than me or my people to be near my window or door. The guy who lived right next to me, who I've always referred to as neighbor, was a quiet guy who immersed himself in school and work. He never had people over, and wasn't known for drunken antics. I don't know why they blurred the image, but the blurred part is his window, his door, my door, and then my window, which you can see. This story takes place right after the end of my second year there. 2 years of nothing remarkable other than the aforementioned car break-ins. Around May of 2010, I was outside cleaning the glass on the door and windows, and decobwebbing the cheap black iron patio furniture I had got at Target. The windows were tall. I am short. In order for me to clean the upper portions of the window, I had to stand on one of the chairs and reach. And that's when I noticed something. Lip prints. Well, just one set of lips. On the window. Pretty high up, too. I couldn't have reached it if I wasn't on the chair. At the time, I was mostly annoyed, thinking maybe neighbor had had one of his friends over, and his drunk friends kissed my window. Because who else would be up near my window? After that, I always made it a point to see if the lips showed up again. They didn't, so I confirmed my drunk neighbor theory in my mind. Now, this is where everyone groans and rolls their eyes. Trust me, I know. I was young and dumb, but even that's not an excuse. Because of where I lived, neighborhood-wise and within the building, there was plenty of nights I'd leave my blinds open. And not only that, but the way my apartment was set up was an L shape. Living room, kitchen, and bedroom all in a straight line back, and then the bathroom off of the side of the bedroom. My daughter's bed was more towards the inside of the bedroom, and mine was at the end of the straight line back. I liked the way the light would come through the trees in the morning. It was really a beautiful sight, and I liked waking up to it. I know, it was a dumb choice. And here's another thing that makes me want to curl up and die. Many nights, my daughter, who at this point in the story is 4 years old, would sleep in my bed. Until she didn't, which was probably around the 4th of July if I remember correctly. She attributed this to, "The tall man that watches me sleep. I don't like it." But in my defense, this kid was known for saying some really creepy shit. One time, she told me a ghost of a baby pig, named Baby Pig Ghost, would talk to her and say he was sad because people tore him apart. And she was sad because the other ghost pigs wanted to hurt me. So her saying something like that was super creepy, but I didn't think there was literally a tall man watching us sleep. But to appease her, and because I was thoroughly creeped out by what she had said, I'd leave the blinds down at night. Most nights I was up until around 3 or 4, because of my work schedule. I figured she was just being weird again, but that imagery sticks with you, I guess. And on to the night that put me in therapy and turned me into the most paranoid person you could ever meet. It was early August. I was asleep in my bed. I went down pretty early. My bedroom door was open, like it always was, and I was asleep facing the living room, like I always was. The blinds were down and closed, like they had been for a month, but the string was wonky, so one portion of the blinds always had about an inch or two of space from the windowsill. All the lights were off, but the patio light was on outside. I randomly woke up and looked down at my phone to see what time it was. Just a few minutes after 3. I was annoyed, thinking there was no way I was going to fall back asleep. And that's when I saw it. Outside of the window, I saw the silhouette of a tall person through the blinds. He was standing completely still. He was standing so still for so long that I started to think I was crazy. I thought I was seeing things. And that's when he sat on one of the chairs outside. I was completely frozen in sheer terror. I couldn't move a muscle. Texting or calling for help seemed out of the question. I was afraid he'd see the light from my phone or hear me. But then again, he sat there for so long that I convinced myself that I just saw a shadow and there was nothing there. And then again, he moved. He stood back up and turned around. He stepped closer to my window and paused. He got right up to the window and paused again. And that's when he leaned over and was looking through the 2 inches of space between the windowsill and the bottom of the blinds. He stood there longer than what seemed feasibly possible in that bent position. His head didn't move. He stood there looking while I kept my eyes mostly shut. I thought if there was any way he could possibly see me with my eyes open looking at him, it'd make him snap and he'd bust in. Eventually, he stood back up and walked out of view. Then I heard the screen door creak open. I can only assume he tried the doorknob, but thankfully I wasn't so much of a dumb shit that I left my door unlocked. Then I heard the door shut again, and after that there was nothing. After I heard the door shut, I didn't see him come back to the window. I checked my phone. It was 3:48 a.m. I quietly slid out of bed and crawled towards the bathroom and threw up. I waited until the sun came up before I called the cops. I can't explain why I was so afraid to move or make a noise until then, but I was paralyzed with fear in the bathroom until then. 2 officers showed up, and I stepped outside to talk to them, and it came as a little surprise to see that the lip prints were on the window again, roughly in the same spot. I have a photo on my MacBook, but at this point it's out of commission, so I can't access it right now. The police took their photos, and the report was filed. I never slept there again. With the police reports, I was able to cancel the lease renewal I had signed and moved back in with my parents. This little tale is still hard to write, even some 30 or so years later. I was about 12 or 13 years old at the time, growing up as a latchkey kid in the mid-1980s. I lived with my mother, her boyfriend, and my younger brother and sister in a modest 1-story house in a residential neighborhood. One day coming home from school, I realized that I had lost my keys somewhere, and instead of waiting until my mom's boyfriend came back from work and from picking up my siblings from their daycare center, and thus unlocking the door, I decided to take matters into my own hand and bust out our basement window with a rock from our backyard. The basement area I shared with my baby sister, as our bedrooms connected to the laundry room. I broke the basement window and crawled inside. I was in and happy. I did not tell my parents about the broken window since it was on a side of the house that was not easily seen by the casual observer. I just figured kid logic. If they don't see it, the problem doesn't exist. Well, a week goes by and all is well. I told my folks I had lost my key somewhere, and they had the locks changed and gave me a new key, which I was extra careful about not losing because I didn't want to have to break any more windows. One night I was reading in my room when I suddenly got the strangest feeling. It was the feeling that something bad was about to happen. My stomach clenched and my mind literally thought, "Don't sleep downstairs tonight." Of course, that being where my bed was, I didn't really have a choice, but I did sneak a butcher knife to slip under my pillow. I don't know why I suddenly didn't feel safe in my own room, because nothing had happened so far to warrant such feelings. Around 10 or 11 o'clock, I was finally able to fall asleep. I woke up from a deep sleep with the sensation of weight on top of me and a choking sensation as if something was blocking my airway. I was a very deep sleeper back then, and it took me a moment to fully rouse and gauge the situation. Someone was sitting on my chest with their hand shoved in my mouth and halfway down my throat. I knew instantly that it was male, and I could feel something large scraping against the roof of my mouth. It turned out to be a large ring he had been wearing. I wasn't able to reach my knife, but I was able to squirm hard enough to dislodge his fist from my mouth and rear backwards in bed to get far enough away from the intruder to launch a kick in his direction. By sheer luck, I was able to kick him right where it counts, and he stumbled away from me. I must have been filled with adrenaline, or something, because instead of screaming and running up the stairs, I grabbed my knife and held it towards him and screamed for him to get the fuck out of my house. Yeah, I used that exact word at that age, and watched as the man kind of limped into the laundry room area and went around the corner and out of sight. Before he went, he turned and smiled at me from over his shoulder, and actually winked. After that, I grabbed my sister, who had slept through the entire thing in her own bed, just feet away, and hightailed it up to the main part of the house. It was only later, after the police came and left, that we realized that the man had gotten in via the window I had so foolishly broken a week before. We had the window fixed, and I never saw that man again. Thank God. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. If you would like a chance to have your story featured on an upcoming video, make sure you email it to urmaker6260@gmail.com. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I really appreciate you watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. And just remember, it's always scarier if it's true.